So the first question is, what are the unique challenges and advantages of building a regulated regional stablecoin like XSGD in a world dominated by this US dollar-pegged stablecoins?
Sure. I think the journey for us started all the way from 2020. So for the folks that doesn't know, we actually launched the Sing dollar-backed stablecoin in 2020 under StraitsX brand because we then see a lot of opportunity to have a world that's not denominated in US dollars. First and foremost, like I think the world, currency is like a sovereignty of a country. We already see a world that domestically in each of this country, payment will always be settled in your local currency itself. Yes, US dollars is still the predominant currency of the world for trades, but when it comes to domestic payments and settlement, every country will want to protect their country's sovereignty and make sure that they can influence economic policies and have a stablecoin of their own. So that's where when we first think about it, we came embark on the journey of issuing what we call the first non-US dollar stablecoin out of 2020 itself, and it had been quite a journey. When we first did it, we did it out of e-money regime, which we are in license for in Singapore. But as of last year, as I mentioned, we are now in what MAS recognized as a well-regulated stablecoin regime itself in Singapore. But the second thing that you also start to realize in US dollars predominant world itself is that, well, beyond the payment use cases and settlement use cases, by not having a stablecoin that's denominated in a currency of your own, you lost the ability to control how the price actions on it, and I would say more like the fiduciary and financial prudency or how the funds are being met. So if for folks that are in the space, they will know that US dollars, the 80% of the US dollars that's minted in the last 5 years itself, right? And that itself is in some sense not really under the control of the Singapore government or in any part of the world, right? So if you're holding to US dollars, you'll realize that yes, the yield has been really exciting. I think for a moment of time, the yield was like about 5, but now it's been reduced just recently by the Feds. So it's come down to 4 something. But if you look at the US dollars to Sing dollar conversion rates since the start of the year, it have depreciated by 6.5%. So if you are just holding on to US dollars and your home currency is pretty strong, like Singapore itself, it's not a very good investment, right? So there are much better alternatives itself. So that's where we start to see that in 2 major areas, like I mentioned. It's first in the payment use cases, where domestically there's always a need to have a currency to settle in the local currency. So especially for what we recently did with Grab, with Ali, and even with OKX. For cross-border use cases, for tourists coming to Singapore, they will be scanning and paying at any Grab merchant, and they will be using XSGD for settlement at the transactional level itself. But then with this being unlocked, and now there's a lot of opportunity for what we call RWA products that will be coming out in the coming months, in my opinion. They will build around treasury management, yield generating product, lending protocol, FX side, that will be denominated in the non-US dollar sense, giving consumer or even institutional an alternative to US dollars itself, which is something that mirrors the real world that we are in from financial world side.
My second question was originally about, do you prefer, should we go after this one, like non-USD stablecoins, or do we prefer like a world with a few big players? I think you addressed that.
First and foremost, the market is very big, right? I think most of the conservative estimate from like JP Morgan or the Citibank group itself were really saying that now we're at $250 billion of circulating supply. 99.7% of it is in US dollars, but the market itself is estimated to grow to at least 2 trillion. So actually, we are really at the starting point here, right?
Which leads to my next question. All right, do you feel that all of a sudden everyone is pumping out a stablecoin and struggles to bootstrap for liquidity, market cap? Do you think the stablecoin competition is getting too crowded, and who will be the ultimate winner?
Yeah, so on my previous point, right? First, I think the market has a lot of room to grow. And in what we always believe in, if the water rises, everyone will get uplift. So there's a lot of opportunity here. I think the jury is still out there who's going to be the winner itself. And given the market size is so huge, you don't really need to be the number 1 or number 2. And I don't really believe that there's going to be a number 1 or number 2 players to just really dominate everything itself. There's opportunity for companies around the world that have different offerings that will be able to provide value in their own different way, which is actually the more important part of the second part of the questions, right? You're right. Everyone is right now super excited about this space, talking about stablecoin. We're fortunate enough that we've been in space for the last 5 years, and we've been thinking about it. I always share that you need 3 things to really get the stablecoin out there, right? And I share that with the company. I've been saying all the time. First thing, you need regulatory compliance, right? That's our advantage of being in a well-regulated regime out of Singapore itself. It's quite easy to be, so-called not illegal. but it's actually quite difficult to be compliant, right? So it's really a spectrum here. And given that we are regulated in a tier 1 jurisdiction like Singapore itself, that sets us apart from a lot of other competitors, and we definitely feel that that helped us get institutional adoption, at least in our part of the world, where you can see folks like Grab and Alipay and now OKX have actually adopted this together with Coinbase, that this is something that they can trust and work with under a regulation regime that's clear and also visionary. But beside compliance and stuff, the second thing you actually need itself is you really need to have very strong banking and payment support, right? And you will see that actually happens over the last years of like stablecoin itself. Most of the stablecoin issuer itself are issued out of banks that you haven't heard of, right? Which is the one that provide the payment infra. Without very strong payment support, it will be difficult for you to actually on-ramp and off-ramp into the stable itself. So we are very fortunate that we are in Singapore again, which is a major financial hub. We're supported by tier 1 banking rails from Standard Chartered to DBS to CIMB itself, right? This sets us apart again from our competitors and other out there, that we will be able to give them the banking support that they actually used to. But that, in my opinion, is just a starting point, right? You need to have that to really just kick off. The most important part is the part that I think will set apart who are the winners and who are going to be the one that might not make it, is that what is the use case here, right? The use cases and the ecosystem drive everything, right? Now that you got compliance, now you can issue a coin, people can buy it. But why would they want to have the stablecoin, right? And that is where you see us spending a good part of our last 5 years working on real world use cases itself. From the Grab Ali cases that we told you, that now a foreigner coming to Singapore using the Alipay Plus app will be able to simply scan and pay at any Grab merchants, right? The user experience itself is seamless. They would not even know that they're using stablecoin, but behind the scene, every transaction is settled with XSGD and XUSD, right? That introduced the use cases that we think that will bring about the mainstream adoption itself. And that's what I feel will be the game changer in down the line. We believe, and I've already been saying, I think there's a world that there will be a lot of different stablecoin issuer, from CBDC to tokenized deposit and other private issued stablecoin itself. But they will all need to be figuring out what is the use cases. And we focus our time and effort and resources on building up the payment rails where stablecoin will need to actually intersect with. And that's how we eventually will build the mode of the business.